there's nothing like cracking that cellophane and pulling that record out. It just smells great.
Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Non-stop hardcore energy.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Unlike any other.
With your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bod Father.
Man, this stuff rocks.
Hi, this is James Andrew, the guitar player from Mastiff, and you are listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
The views and opinions of the guest do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of BODS Mayhem Radio Network, its staff, affiliates, or sponsors. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Radio Network.
Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour Podcast. I'm your host, John the Bod, aka the Bod Father. And as always, I bring you guys and gals awesome interviews. And I want to thank each and every single person that is listening and the ones who come back to watch the replay of this interview. I tremendously appreciate it. I know James of Mastiff appreciates this. So without further ado, I have James Andrew. He's the guitarist of Mastiff, UK 5-piece and recent Entertainment One, eOne signees. Mastiff will release their third full-length album entitled Leave Me the Ashes of the Earth on September 10th, of course, via eOne. Also, check out singles Endless and Repulse that are out right now. These are heavy hitters, and these are the good songs. Good song, James. So well done on that, my friend. How you guys doing, man? How you doing especially?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much. Lovely to be on the show tonight. Lovely to be chatting to you. Always a pleasure to speak to people about our stupid band.
Well, we got that out of the way. No, I'm just kidding.
I said it so you don't have to. Yeah.
I'm glad to have you on here, man, because I like getting, a lot of bands out there, and I know you guys are pretty well known, but any type of help will help, so.
Yeah. No, we very much appreciate it. I think you were being very kind saying that we're very well known, but we're trying our best to get out there now. Obviously not physically at the moment because that's not really a thing yet, but yeah, we're doing our best.
So how excited are you to release the upcoming third album entitled Leave Me the Ashes of the Earth? Man, what excites you the most about getting this album out finally?
Obviously we're very excited. The most exciting thing, I guess, is just having it out there. I mean, we made the album nearly a year ago now, and so we've kind of just been sitting on this thing, just wanting to sort of like play it to everyone that's willing to listen. We are still very excited about it. We've made, we're very proud of everything we've done in the past, all of our releases, but we kind of, there's usually a point, maybe a few weeks or months after we've finished making a record, that we start looking back at it and being like, oh, maybe we could have rehearsed that a little better, or maybe that song could have done with a little bit more editing, or maybe we could have played that a bit tighter or anything. But with this one, I think, sort of 10 months down the line from us leaving the studio, we're still psyched about it, and we're happy that the people that have heard it so far and the people that have heard the singles that we've released so far have just been pretty much like uniformly positive about it, and we're very, very thankful and happy about that.
The bad part is about the pandemic. I mean, some of you musicians and bands had to sit on these albums and EPs for, like you said, a year. And I mean, this has to be frustrating, old to you and sick probably, but new to us and great. Getting this out there like that though, man, I mean, are you guys finally just say, okay, look, let's just move on past this, or what are you guys doing as of right now?
We've kind of just literally just in the last few weeks sort of started thinking about writing some new songs. Again, because even though we've been sat on the album for 10, nearly 11 months, so much of that time period, like the UK has been sort of in and out of lockdowns. There've been restrictions on social interaction, so there've been huge gaps, sometimes months at a time, where we've not even been able to be in a room together. We all, we write little bits and pieces individually and kind of send ideas over to each other. But we operate best in a room, the five of us. So like, it's almost kind of like moving beyond the material on this album hasn't really even been like on the cards. We've not been able to just because we haven't physically had the chance. And then as soon as we did get to be, back rehearsing again, we had to like get back into like, okay, we should remember how to play the songs on this album because we're gonna have to start playing shows soon. So yeah, we're still kind of very firmly in the headspace of these songs and this album, and we're starting to tinker with bits of new material, but there's not, we're not in a hurry. We're not in a hurry to have another album just yet.
Was there any rust though of you guys getting back into the swing of things when you got back into the studio, or any rehearsal practice or anything, man?
In any rust, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, we're kind of rusty guys anyway. We're sort of not, not to discredit ourselves. We're kind of loose as a band. We're not like always the tightest guys on the planet. I think the way we write music kind of plays into that. We're not trying to be. We're not. We're not Between the Buried and Me. We're not writing like 10-minute intricate prog opuses. We play to our strengths, and so it's being a little bit rusty after so long not playing. It's not the worst thing because we kind of just get away with it because of the messy, noisy music we write.
August 31st marked 4 years of the release of the album Bork. What stands out the most on this album when you reflect back on it, if anything, looking back at it?
So Bork is it's sort of a strange one for us. It was a very kind of transitional record for Mastiff because it was the first thing that myself and Dan, our bass player, actually played on. We'd both been in the band sort of a reasonably short time. Dan especially, so he literally had been in Mastiff for about 6 weeks, I think, when we recorded that record. So, Dan didn't contribute to any of the writing of that. I wrote, a couple, some of the songs on it, but some of them were either already existed or were like older Mastiff songs that we kind of tweaked a little bit. So like Bork is still, like a very important release to us. It was the first thing we sort of recorded and released together. It was the first thing we released on our old record label APF, which we're still, very, very good friends. Very, we had things with APF sort of came to a conclusion on very happy, good terms. And we love. I was going to say everyone at that label, but the label is literally just one wonderful man. So yeah, Bork was a big important thing for us, and we feel we sort of moved on musically, and I think we became a better band after that. But we're still happy. We're not gonna bury that and like pretend that it didn't exist. We're still very happy that that's kind of part of our history.
Some say that sophomore album Plague really kicked the doors in for you guys, and it was recorded live in the studio in just 2 days. I mean, you guys are notorious for like recording a full album in like 2 hours. No, just kidding. But what's your thoughts on that, man? With that album, did that really knock the door open for you guys, you think?
It did. I guess in the sense that like that the Plague album, it was the first time that we got any real sort of exposure in a lot of, I guess, markets outside of our own sort of little kind of scene or like music community in the UK. It was the first time that we got any press in the States. We spoke to some of the bigger music magazines and zines and websites. It was really well reviewed pretty much across the board. I don't think we got any less than like an 8 out of 10 in any review for Plague. As a band that certainly at the time on quite a sort of small record label with reasonably small distribution, we didn't physically sell an amount of copies that would make anyone gasp, but I think, what it did for our reputation was a lot bigger than any kind of like numbers would give away. I think it opened doors for us. It made show promoters pay attention to us. It got us on some really cool tours, and it meant that by the time we came to recording this album, it meant that like having a conversation with a label like eOne wasn't complete, it wasn't complete fantasy. It actually was something that could and did happen. So where Plague was very important for us in that sense.
Are you still shocked that you actually are signed with an actual label now, as big as eOne?
Yes, and we always will be shocked that that eOne took the punt on us, but we're obviously very happy that they did. It was, we got very lucky with that entire situation. Our kind of relationship with eOne is very solid proof that it's not always what it's who you know. We happen to, a friend in a band works for the kind of European leg of eOne, and we played a couple of shows with his band. We were already sort of friendly, and I think we were like drunk at a show and said, I think we're going to make a new album next year. And he's like, oh, cool. Like, send it to me. I'll run it up the flagpole and see if any of the guys dig it. You might get like a cool tour out of it or something. We were like, yeah, that'd be cool. Like, we might tour with Crowbar or something. That'd be amazing. And so, we made the album off our own backs as well. Like, the album was in the can before eOne were even like in picture. Sent him the sort of unmastered version of the record. He sent it to the guys upstairs, and like 2 weeks later, just got a message from our good buddy Dan, and he was like, "Yep, they love the album. They want to sign you. Let's start talking." And I think like all of us just kind of like just nearly passed out from excitement and shock and terror. And we weren't really, it felt like for a long time, because the timing of this was sort of right at the tail end of 2020 going, and because of the nature of the lockdowns in the UK, we couldn't even see each other, let alone like meet anyone for, like conversations like that in person. So, there were emails backwards and forwards, a couple of Zoom calls, but until that sort of press release dropped at the start of June, when they told the world Mastiff are signed to eOne, we were kind of like, this is all just a big joke. We're just waiting for someone to pull the rug out from under us and be like, ha, gotcha. But no, it's real. It's still real.
I mean, Black Label Society's on eOne, so there's another torch you may hook up on. That'd be massive.
Yeah. I mean, eOne Heavy's roster is unbelievable. Yeah. Black Label, High on Fire, Contortionist, Creeping Death, Great American Ghost, like so many awesome bands, both kind of like legacy bands and, younger, newer bands. And there's just such a breadth of different kinds of heavy music as well. They're not just putting themselves in kind of one pocket of the kind of the heavy music universe. They're really just sort of spreading out and giving chances to all kinds of different artists, and that's part of the reason why. I mean, we were the second the conversation started, we were always going to say yes, but it's certainly that was part of why we were so sort of confident that was a good move for us, because they've got. They give chances to younger bands like Creeping Death and Plague Years. But then if a band like High on Fire or Crowbar is like, yeah, we'll hang around this label for multiple albums, multiple years. Like, there's a reason. There must be reasons that those guys put their trust in eOne. So who are we to say no?
eOne, you should send me Zach Wild. Let me have Zach Wild for an interview, guys. That's all I'm asking. Let me have Brother Zach on here again, and that'll be awesome. Love to have.
We'll see what we can do.
Well,
I'll send some messages.
There you go. Send it through the interwebs, as we call it.
Yeah.
What led the track "Endless" to be the first single release, man? What was there any other tracks that possibly could have been the single off of this album?
I mean, I think the thing that one of the reasons we were kind of so happy about the album. Sorry, my cat's about to knock my camera over. And one of the reasons why we're so sort of proud of the album is because I think there isn't like no one song really kind of gives away the whole record. Every song has its own kind of identity and flavor. I think the reason that, and we did decide reasonably early on that Endless would be the first single. And I think it's because Endless in itself is kind of all over the place as a song. It starts in one place and ends in quite a different kind of musical place. I mean, it's all still just like shouty, noisy, angry, heavy music, but it's, it starts and it's got this kind of almost like death metal, black metal feel to it. This kind of big sort of open chords in the middle, and then it ends on a kind of cronky like 90s metalcore breakdown. And just the way that that song kind of shifts and evolves through these different flavors of heavy music, we felt that was as good an indicator as any as to what you could expect from the album, as much as just expect everything.
So as a band, were you a little nervous releasing this album right now since bands can't tour? Or did you guys just say, hey, look, let's just get this out there to be irrelevant right now?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, like I said, we've been sitting on the album for the best part of a year. And we signed the contract with eOne in January. So it's like, it's already been, kind of 8 months since the ink dried on the contracts. So it doesn't feel like we're kind of rushing it out the door. Obviously, we know that at the moment touring, especially like international touring, is still not really on the cards for most bands, unless you're like the sort of the bands that can charter private jets and helicopter into festivals and things. Most sort of mid or small level bands are just hopping on planes and crossing the Atlantic isn't a reality at the moment. But at least here in the UK, where we are, things are kind of like, I mean, there's still we're not out of the woods yet, and there's new variants, and there's still a danger in the air, and there's still sort of people are being cautious, but shows are getting cancelled less frequently. We've been able to play three shows in the last few months, which doesn't sound like a lot, but after 18 months of no shows, 3's amazing.
Sure.
We've got a tour, and we've got a tour, just like a 6-day tour in October that we've not been given any reason to think won't go ahead yet. So, fingers crossed that's all happening. So, we can do stuff. We can promote it, and the internet's always going to be there as a tool for bands like us. And I mean, it's doing, so many bands in the last year have had to kind of re-strategize how to promote themselves and how to engage with their fans through the internet. And that's why so many bands are doing live stream concerts and things like that, just to continue to engage with people. So that's not out of question. That might be something that we can we'll think about doing in the sort of reasonably near future. That would be really fun as a way to if we can't physically make our way out to the US or to the mainland of Europe at the moment, at least we could do something like that, and so people can still kind of get at least a little bit of an idea of what we're like live.
And here's something else too, man. I'm glad you mentioned this, because I think it has put every band and every artist out there on an even playing field now, if that makes sense, because you've got, say, your next door neighbor Joe, who's desperately been trying for years to make it, now it's an even playing field, man. You know?
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of good bands that has actually put stuff up. And I'm like, wow, this is cool. And I think that's awesome. I hate that COVID has happened, but for musicians, in a way, this is kind of a dark blessing. And I don't mean it in a bad way at all. I just mean like some things for music has helped out for this.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, you know, obviously like the sort of the last 18 months or, you know, coming closer, you know, maybe even closer to 2 years now have been rough, definitely rough on like the live music scene. And I think it's hurt the people that are kind of adjacent to the music industry rather than the artists. You know, it's people that run venues, it's people that work in venues, lighting engineers, you know, sound engineers. They're the ones that are kind of missing out, which, you know, hopefully will be coming to a close soon and they can all get back to work.
Yeah.
Along with the rest of us. But I think you're right in terms of like bands. I mean, having all this free time. I mean, how many people, you know, in bands of all different kinds in the last, you know, 18 months have had maybe months of no work, which not one of us as an adult ever sort of expects to get, you know, 4 months without needing to go to work. So a lot of people will have had all this time to like, with nothing more to do than to sit and create and write songs and, you know, work on ideas and, you know, figure out, you know, cool things they could do with live streams and things like that. So I do think it, you know, in the long run, it will have added this kind of whole new dimension of ways that musicians can engage with fans. Because if people have really, you know, in some instances really latched onto the sort of live stream concert idea, you know, because the bands that have, you know, like put a bit more thought into it, and it's not just been, oh well, let's just film us in a room. It's like the bands like Code Orange did like an incredible one last year where it was practically like an art film, and they just happened to be playing all their crazy mosh songs in the middle of it, and like Under Oath did one, and, you know, loads of kind of bands that, you know, usually would excel in the live scene have found a way to like mutate and transpose their like ideas into this sort of new medium. It's quite interesting. It'd be awesome if we could do something like that.
It's pretty much you had to learn how to adapt to a new culture, pretty much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Any tracks standing out more to you than any right now on Leave Me the Ashes of the Earth? I know it must change every time that you listen to it. I know this is your babies, but do you have anything that stick out for you possibly?
I mean, yeah, you are right. I mean, I guess like you do kind of your relationship with your songs changes after they're recorded. I think I've found it with every record we've made. There are songs that I've never consciously, you know, we've never consciously recorded a song that we don't like, but I think individual members of the bands have, you know, maybe sort of have preferences that lean to certain songs when you're kind of writing them, rehearsing them. And, you know, there are songs that I was happy to play, I thought were good songs, but I didn't necessarily love. And then we recorded them. And then when I heard it back, I was like, oh, actually, no, I really love that song. I think a good example of that for me would be Repulse, the single we put out last month. You know, I enjoyed playing it. It's a fun song to play, you know, when we wrote it. And that's one of the sort of earlier songs we wrote for the album as well. That, you know, we've been kicking that song around since 2019, I think. And, you know, it was a cool song. And then we recorded it. And then once it was sort of mixed and mastered, and then we heard it back, and I was like, oh, okay. Wow. And, you know, and then that's, you know, part of why it ended up being like the second single that we released after Endless. Another song that remains, it might be my favorite song on the album, is the second to last track on the album, which is called Scalped and Salted, which is kind of, I don't know, it's just, we've played it live a couple of times now, and it's just a crazy song. Like it's basically just like two kind of bookends of a horrible kind of like slam, like breakdown, with just 2 minutes in the middle of just blast beats and kind of tremolo picked like riffs and D beats, and it's like easily the most kind of flat out aggressive song on the album, and it's just loads of fun to play that song. And the couple of times we have played it, it's definitely made an impact on people. So I'm looking forward to people hearing it on the record, so that then once people even know the song and we start playing it at shows, then we get to see what happens.
Any tracks that didn't make this album we can see on an upcoming EP or another full length possibly, or no?
No. We as a band, we tend to like, we don't really do kind of B-sides. We write material until we've got enough songs that we're like, that's an album, and then we record those songs, and then that's an album, and then we start writing more. There were, I think, during the process of this making Leave Me the Ashes of the Earth, there were a couple of tracks that we kind of started working on and maybe got, sort of 3/4 of a song, and then we just decided that it doesn't feel right, for whatever reason. Usually it's nothing to do with it necessarily being a bad song. It's just if it doesn't have the right kind of feel into it. We're quite, we try not to put too many kind of boundaries up as to what we can and can't do, especially now. Like maybe earlier on we were more strict in that it had to, this isn't sludgy or this isn't doomy, so it's not Mastiff. And I think as with each release, we've kind of pushed the walls out a little bit as to what Mastiff is. But there are still kind of riffs that, if it's too melodic, if it's a bit too, I think if we said if it sounds happy or heroic, it's not right. If it sounds like Killswitch Engage would play that riff, then, and we're all huge Killswitch fans, but they've got a very different vibe to us. So if it feels like, it's a bit too like fist in the air, we're all like riding a unicorn into Valhalla, then nah, that's not a Mastiff song. So yeah, there were a couple of songs that veered a bit too close to melody that had to go in the bin. But yeah, no songs were completed that didn't make the album.
Was there a track that you guys were working on that totally ended up sounding different than it was intended to? Was there a song that took a huge turn?
So the final song on the album, Long Rust, was actually a song that I'd written just kind of for my own entertainment a few years ago, where I was in between bands, and I just continued to write because I like to write, music, and I'd written basically the riffs and the kind of at least sort of half of the structure of what ended up being that song, except it was about 3 times as fast, and it was kind of like a Entomb style death metal song. And then I kind of brought that to Mastiff, and just somewhere along the line we were trying to get it to work, and it just wasn't working. But I think we were all kind of like, well, the riffs are cool, what if we like slow them right down and turn it into a kind of doom song? And so we did that, and then pretty much as soon as it had taken shape, we're like, well, that's the end, that's the album closer. It kind of, so yeah, I guess that took quite a bit of a journey as a song. Yeah.
Joe Clayton produced the album, and this was done like in 5 days at no studio. So let's talk about that a little bit. How is working with him? And man, is this something that you guys are so used to, of putting out albums that quick?
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it a lot when we were sort of Plague came out. Our old label, like I said before, APF were amazing. for us, but they had quite a sort of limited budget, and they released our album, they pressed it, they distributed it, but they didn't have budget for like recording. All of the bands on APF kind of just like pay for their own recordings, and then the label puts it out. And so we were always quite limited in what we could just practically what we could afford studio time wise. So we like playing together as a band. We like being in a room. We like just smashing through songs together. And so for us, it always kind of felt it was sort of a lot practicality, but also a certain aspect. Our band is just best in a room together and not separated out into booths, tracking everything separately and splicing it together in a computer. So it's just kind of a happy marriage that, us wanting to just be in a room playing together makes for a faster recording process, because as long as we practiced our songs enough in the run up to the studio, we can and have, put, like 6-7 songs, down in a single day before. So yeah, Plague, literally it was recorded, mixed and mastered within 48 hours. Bork was the same. And with this record, obviously, like as I already mentioned, eOne was nowhere in the picture. Like when we were going into record Leave Me the Ash of the Earth, there was no concept at the time that anyone other than APF would release it. But we had a little bit of extra money this time because we got, when we started, we were offered some money for one of our songs to be in the Cyberpunk 2077 game. And so we got paid a nice, not, huge amount, but a nice little amount of money for our song for that game. And that money allowed us to spend a little bit more time in the studio. Not a lot more, obviously, but, 5 days versus 2 days, it's 2.5 times longer. So for us, 5 days, it was the longest we'd ever been in the studio. It felt like a holiday. It felt like we were there forever. And we still, because we still essentially wanted to record the way we'd always recorded with, at least not Jim, our vocalist, because he, it's better if vocals tend to be better if you sort of track them separately, but at least the rest of us, just was set up in the studio live room, little bit of like blocking to sort of minimize bleed through in the mics and things like that. But essentially we still recorded the bulk of the skeleton of the album live in the room together. And then we just had, a few more days where we could add layers of guitars, put bits of overdubs in, add, details and touches here and there, put all the vocals on at the end and things like that. So yeah, it really felt like we had like a luxurious time, but we are very aware that 5 days is like barely like demo recording time for most bands.
So who did the artwork for this amazing album?
So the artwork was done. It was by a guy based in Brighton, which is a lovely seaside town on the sort of southeast coast of the UK. He professionally goes by the name True Spilt Milk Designs. We've always sort of handled our artwork in house before. Bork was a photograph that Jim took. That was the cover. Plague was like a sort of photograph that Dan found that he, did the sort of layout around it. With this one, I think, once we'd finished the record, once we had it recorded, mixed and mastered, we felt even before we knew about eOne, we felt that we'd made like a bit more of a special thing this time. And, we put the extra time in, we'd put the extra money into recording. We felt that we kind of owed the album a little bit more of a sort of special treatment with the art as well. So we sort of looked around of, you know, artists that we knew, artists whose reputations, you know, we were trustworthy, people that, you know, friends bands have worked with before. And True Spilt Milk was just, he just had this really sort of nice mix of being a really sort of skilled artist, but his style isn't necessarily, you know, what you would see on a metal album. You know, we didn't necessarily want to go down the, you know, the sort of devils and hellscapes and as cool, you know, as cool as that stuff is. And, you know, don't get me wrong, if you know, if we could have got like Dan Seagrave to paint us an album cover, I would never say no to that. But you know, we just appreciated that his art style was kind of a bit different, and we thought, well, and we didn't even give him a brief for the art either. We just gave him the album and just said, look, like, this is the title, this is the album, spin it a few times, absorb it, and like see what comes out. And what ended up becoming the album art was like the first idea that he sent us. It was, you know, he sent us a rough sketch to begin with, but it immediately kind of captured the mood. It was, you know, quite stark and moody, and not, you know, it sort of sets a mood rather than saying like, this is this, you know, it's a bit more open to interpretation. And I think, you know, we like the idea of, it was someone else outside of the band that was what spoke to them, and that's what came out when they heard the music, and we really liked that. And so that's how it happened.
So what made you want to become a musician? What was that spark for you that said, yeah, that's what I want to at least try to see if I dig it?
Oh, well, that's a good question. I don't know. I guess I'd always been around music as a kid. Like, my parents listened to, you know, my mum was always listening to like old sort of like 50s and 60s rock and roll records. My dad always listened to a lot of sort of blues music in the house. And I have a couple of older brothers as well that like a little bit older than me, but still, you know, like not like significantly older than me. So they were kind of, when I was young and impressionable, they were listening to a lot of the kind of like British guitar music and kind of indie rock, and that was, you know, around at the time. And because they were my older brothers, I looked up to them, and I wanted to, you know, I wanted them to think I was cool. So I started listening to the bands that they listened to, and then they, you know, between them, they both independently, like, of each other played the guitar. So they kind of, you know, helped me pick a guitar up and start learning. And it just sort of snowballed, as it always does. You sort of go from picking out a few chords to learning a few songs, and then you start developing taste. And then, it just carried on. I never lost the spark of enjoying music or enjoying to play music. And then, you know, as time goes on, and you just sort of eventually, thankfully I landed myself in a situation where, you know, I was invited into Mastiff, which, you know, they were already a band, but before I joined, but I was good friends with all the guys. I played in bands with Phil, the other guitar player, when we were sort of like in our like late teens, early 20s. So we had a shared musical history, and then it all just kind of clicked and worked out.
Do you still have a go-to album or song that you find yourself going back to and listening to from time to time, at least possibly?
I mean, hundreds and hundreds. I'm getting, I suppose I'm getting to the age now where I find myself sort of sinking into like my comfort music. I probably don't listen to as much new music as I should anymore. I kind of, I find myself creeping back to sort of old favorites, you know, try and feel like I'm still 18 again. I
know the feeling.
Yeah. I mean, if I was to pick anything out, I mean, I would say my favorite band of all time is Cave In, and I guess anything that they ever released, Jupiter, Until Your Heart Stops, honestly, they're a band who I don't think they've ever put out a bad record. And depending on the day of the week, if you ask me which one was their best, I'd tell you a different one. They're my big one.
James, man, how can folks stay in touch with you guys, buy this new album, tour dates, when that all happens, everything Mastiff? How can they do that, sir?
How can they do that? So we are on most of the big social media platforms. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I think on all of those you'll find us Mastiff HCHC, which I believe we tell people that stands for Hull City Hardcore or Hull City Hate Core or something like that. Anyway, Mastiff HCHC. That's where you can find us on social media. Obviously, Leaving the Ashes of the Earth out September 10th. You can buy it, I think, pretty much anywhere that you can buy music. It's on all of the streaming platforms. You can get it on Amazon. You can buy it through Bandcamp. You can buy it straight from eOne, which would be very nice because cut out the middleman. We are on tour last week of October in the UK with our good friends Calligram. We're playing, I can't remember which cities. I think the big ones, big ones: London, Manchester, Edinburgh. Or are we playing Glasgow? I can't remember. I'm terrible at finer details like that. I don't drive, so I just get in the truck and I just get out when we're at a venue. And that's pretty much. We've got a couple of shows dotted around here or there, but apart from that, that's our year.
And before I let you go, good sir, would you care to do a promo for my show?
Of course, yeah, no problem at all. Hi, this is James Andrew, the guitar player from Mastiff, and you are listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Everybody stick around. We got some great stuff coming up, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour Podcast. Please get out and check out our Facebook page. It has our podcast link and our YouTube link, and you definitely want to subscribe to that YouTube link because we got a lot of stuff coming up and some stuff that I can't drop just now, but James knows a little bit about the beginning of this interview, but it's going to be big. And also, please, folks, get out and support Mastiff. Pick up this new album, their third full-length album, Leave Me the Ashes of the Earth, on September 10th via eOne. And please give this band a shot. You won't be disappointed. James, thanks for doing this interview, man, and I appreciate it. I wish you guys nothing but the best of luck.
Thank you so much. This has been loads of fun, John. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's like, wow. Come on, eOne.
I'll see what I can do. I'll get him on the phone now.
We'll talk, some Liberace stuff he likes to talk about, all the other stuff. So thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, man.
You're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.